Hi, I'm Will and welcome to Eddie's Tech Talk. Today we'll be discussing the iPad Pro 12.9-inch 2017 edition. But this is more of an opinion/review of the whole iPad line, and I have some opinions on the other ones based upon my observations with this one, so stay tuned and hope you enjoy. So my first impression is with the iPad Pro is, yes, it's a very, very large tablet, but coming from a PC workstation that I use every day for class, for the most part, this is incredibly small. The 13-inch screen is definitely productivity-minded. You're able to open up multiple apps on it and do normal classwork with a breeze. Another thing that's great with it is the touchscreen, which is something I haven't had on any computers previously. It makes scrolling through web pages a breeze, and honestly, it's probably one of the best ways I've interacted with Chrome or my notes so far, and I've yet to find something that will break my opinion of that. So some pros are, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, the size. It's very small, very portable, easy to pull in and out of a bag with ease. It's got lots and lots of apps on it. Like, if you don't think that you'll have what you need to do a normal day's work of productivity, chances are you're wrong, and that there's numerous apps on here. I have Excel, I have Microsoft Word, all the Google Cloud stuff on it, and so far I've not been looking for any of the higher end features in my day-to-day workflow. However, your mileage may vary on this if you're doing lots of things with formulas or whatever in like Google Sheets or Excel. Another pro is the lifespan of the battery. I get at least 10 to 12 hours of usage out of this, which will last me 2 to 3 days before I have to recharge it. And even then, I'm generally recharging at about 30% just to make sure it's ready to go for the next day. Another pro is its size and weight. It's very, very lightweight, and you can just fold it up, stick it in the bag, and you're good to go. All right, so now some things I'm a little bit more neutral on. The Apple Pencil, I absolutely adore the Apple Pencil. It is probably one of the best writing experiences I've had on a computer or tablet device my entire life. And I've used Surfaces, I've used the S Pen on the Samsung stuff. I've even used Wacom large format display pen tablets, and this is probably so far my favorite. It's perfectly weighted, and it's just a joy to use. However, this is not what I would consider cheap, and it's almost a necessity if you buy the iPad Pro like this one. However, this does not work on anything other than the iPad Pro line. So if you wanted to get an Apple Pencil for your iPhone or your 9.7-inch iPad or iPad mini even, this will not work on it as it is linked to a special digitizer that is only in the iPad Pro line of products. So on that note, however, much of the iPad Pro does link over to the lower-end iPads, which actually, in my opinion, is a great choice as an everyday computer, where the iPad Pro is for someone who just needs that little bit extra more with either handwriting or just that extra screen real estate like you see with the 13-inch. So I've gone through some neutrals, I've gone through some pros, and unfortunately now it's time for some cons. My main con with this is that it does not run a traditional desktop OS, which I think is its limiting factor, as most of my work in day-to-day that I need a laptop or a computer for is Visual Studio and Unity, because I do game dev and stuff. And then I also do video editing, which there is no cost-effective solution for my workflow of video editing, which is in a nonlinear editor, which we can go into in another video. But it's good enough, I feel, for most 99% of people's day-to-day workflow that I would recommend a tablet or similar device to the iPad or iPad Pro to anybody looking just to replace a laptop or upgrade from a generic laptop to something that has a little bit more support or just is a little bit more responsive. And speaking of responsiveness, this is the 120 hertz display on this, which makes it incredibly responsive for handwriting and even viewing videos and things that are at that frame rate, which is a pro and a con of this device itself, as that will use more power when it's in the 120 hertz mode, which lowers its battery life. Not significantly, but enough that it's probably noticeable in a day-to-day usage, but it does have a variable refresh rate to help mitigate that factor. Another con that I have is the Apple Pencil has the dumbest charging I've ever seen. I don't know if you've seen this before or not, but you just plug it into the bottom and that's how you charge it. I'm going to break that. Like, probably today I'll probably break this, quite honestly. All right, so I've gone through my pros, cons, and neutral opinions on the iPad Pro. Some of my final thoughts are that I would love to see this with either Mac OS or a more unified version of Mac OS and iOS combined. However, that's not saying that iOS is bad. I actually rather like iOS 11, and it's a very fluid and responsive experience that you don't get anywhere other than on iOS devices. But that also brings about the fact that I mentioned earlier where I do have desktop applications that do not have a mobile counterpart. And due to that, even when I'm using this for everyday like web browsing and things, I find myself looking for a trackpad more often than I remember that I just need to touch the screen. So if you're really bound to your trackpad or mouse, this is not the device for you, but it's an interesting solution to a problem you may or may not be having, which is using a lighter weight machine during your everyday workflow, but finding something a little bit more powerful when you need to sit down and really get true work done with it. Thanks, this has been Eddie's Tech Talks, and we'll see you next time.